Hi guys, it's Alexa from Alexa Plays Games. I'm really excited to share with you guys some tips and tricks that I've picked up playing my main, Jessie. Throughout my Brawl Stars career, she has been my go-to brawler when I want to play, but I'm not sure who to play. You might find that strange, seeing as most players have always underestimated Jessie, but I promise you, if you learn just a few strategies and tricks, Jessie can easily carry even the worst randoms in most modes. Also, I feel like a guide was needed, since our Hypercharge got a charging rate buff. I've been seeing Jessie's all over the place, and well, I feel like most players finally giving her the time of day needs some advice. But instead of pushing her a lot on my main, as you can see, I already have her title, which I got by accident. No, really, that's how much I play her. I decided to go to my mini, finally get her mastery pin on that account, seeing as I like to have a mastery goal to strive for, and mess around with her different gadgets and star powers. So without further ado, let's get into it, so you can learn how to be number one, just like my girl, Jessie.
Don't mess with Jess!
This is my personal favorite build. I'm sure most players will disagree with me over whether or not it's the best build. I'd say most will disagree, but I personally find this build provides the most value, at least when you take my playstyle into account. But don't listen to the hate. All of her star powers and gadgets have their use in certain situations, and I want to give you all the information you need to create the build that works best for you. So let's get into it, starting with her gadgets. Spark Plug was the first gadget they gave Jessie. It slows down enemies in a certain radius, making them much easier targets. Since Jessie's basic attack bounces off multiple enemies, this slow can help you get double kills and team wipes if you wait for the right moment, or do what most players do, throw Scrappy in your enemies' faces and hit your gadget. Keep in mind though, you should only do so if you have ammo. If you're playing with friends or good randoms, they'll hopefully be paying attention and take advantage of the situation, but most bad randoms don't pay attention, so make sure you have all the ammo you need to get the most out of the slow. Recoil Spring was the second gadget they released for Jessie, and I remember it like yesterday. I immediately fell in love with it because it helped me carry randoms much more easily than with Spark Plug, which isn't to say Spark Plug is bad, just it's best when you have good teammates, and when you play with randoms, you rarely do have good teammates. And since Jessie is my main, I mostly play with randoms, so this gadget easily became my go-to carry randoms gadget. Recoil Spring helps Scrappy increase its attack speed for 5 seconds. Hitting this gadget when enemies get too close for comfort or in an emergency self-defense situation will melt your enemy's HP. It doesn't matter if it's Tick or Frank. If they're too close, they'll be gone in seconds. Since it does a significant amount of damage on its own, it doesn't require you to have your ammo ready when you use it. So it's much more useful in emergency situations and in situations where you're trying to carry randoms and you don't have time to let your ammo reload. If you're partial to Spark Plug, this gadget is still worth the gold if you want to play Jessie in Heist. Spark Plug does absolutely nothing to the safe and instead encourages you to play defense the whole game, which is bad. The best defense in Heist is a good offense, so taking Recoil Spring will be worth it in any case because you can use it for emergency defense and it will melt the safe in seconds. Energize gives Jessie the ability to heal Scrappy with her basic attack. Since Jessie is incredibly vulnerable without her little friend, this star power does come in handy. Healing up your turret doesn't just extend Scrappy's life, it also forces your enemies to waste more ammo to destroy it. But keep in mind, there are plenty of sharpshooters who can just delete Scrappy without a scratch, which can make the star power feel a bit like you're wasting ammo instead. Shocky makes Scrappy's attack a lot like Jessie's basic attack. Instead of only hitting one target at a time, it bounces off one enemy and hits another if they're in range. This, of course, massively increases your damage output when enemies are grouped together. I especially like to pair this star power with Recoil Spring because it increases the chance of Scrappy helping Jessie get a double kill or team wipe when enemies are grouped together. Seeing as Hot Zone is my favorite mode and enemies tend to group together on a zone, I have used this combo to secure some clutch team wipes, especially on Hot Zone maps with only one zone. I also prefer this combo in Heist because a lot of enemies try to tank Scrappy's attack to protect their safe, but with the star power they just end up dying as Scrappy melts the safe. Now that you've picked your preferred gadget and star power, we can move on to her gears. Aside from her epic gear, her gears are pretty standard, but what's important is whether or not these gears will benefit Jessie. Since she is squishy, you don't want to get the health gear for her, but you can find a lot of value from the rest of the gears while playing Jessie. So let's get into it, starting with her epic gear. Her Pet Power Epic Gear is definitely worth the extra 500 coins. I even got it on my mini where I am constantly out of coins. So you know I mean it when I say it's worth it. This gear increases Scrappy's damage by 25%. As you can see, Scrappy's damage output is definitely much higher with this gear. For both her normal and hypercharged turrets, Scrappy gains over 100 damage per hit, which can make a big difference while you're playing, especially if you're going up against tanky brawlers or healers. My other preferred gear, Gadget Charge or the +1 gear, is pretty self-explanatory. Both of Jessie's gadgets are extremely useful, so it never hurts to have an extra gadget at your disposal. Speed. Since Jessie's basic attack bounces between enemies, you can use her to find enemies in the grass, which means she thrives on a lot of grassy maps. So having the speed gear can really make a big difference when you're playing competitively in ranked or climbing the ladder. Vision is also a great option for grassy maps for the same reason. Unlike brawlers who can only hit one brawler at a time, Jessie's basic can potentially find every enemy in the grass for your team. So having the vision gear makes it so much easier for you to use Jessie to scout out your enemies and prevent surprise attacks that could lose you the game. Shield. While for most modes, I have switched to using the +1 gear, except on my mini. I don't have the coins to buy it on my mini, unfortunately. So I opted to buy her shield gear instead, since it would allow me to play whatever mode I wanted. And that's exactly the point. Jessie is very squishy, because she has her turret as extra defense. Because she has Scrappy to protect her, and in modes like Hot Zone, Heist, and Brawl, it's okay if she dies a few times. But in passive modes, the shield gear is absolutely necessary, especially since meta brawlers in passive modes tend to outrange her. And if you play it smart, heal up whenever needed, and do your best to juke their attacks, Jessie can compete with them and bring a lot of value to your team. But the nature of passive modes means it will take a while to charge up her first super, so you need that shield in order to survive long enough to bring her little friend onto the map. Damage. Her basic attack when it only hits a single target doesn't do a lot of damage, which is why in the early game, assassins and tanks love targeting her. Which is why a lot of players, especially showdown players, think of her as an easy kill because of it. So the damage gear could help you increase your basic damage output and help you defend yourself a little bit better in the early game. But the squish is real. If you find yourself losing enough HP to activate this gear, you're very likely going to die soon and should probably heal up. It's hard to get value out of this gear like sharpshooters or tankier brawlers can because Jessie often gets outranged and or targeted by Edgar means lusting for an easy kill. Ever since Jessie got her Hypercharge, I was so shocked at how everyone underrated it. I mean, there are flashier Hypercharges out there to be true, but what makes Jessie's Hypercharge so undeniably strong is the fact that her Hypercharge times out, but her Hypercharged turret stays Hypercharged, which means that her Hypercharge can technically last the entire game as long as her Hypercharged turret stays on the map. Her Hypercharge turret also almost guarantees Jessie will charge up another Hypercharge, even if she dies in the meantime. In this game, you can see Jessie's turret outlasted Spike's Hypercharge by a very long margin, and it made it incredibly hard for the enemy to make it out of their spawn, especially Doug and the Fang, who was trying to bully me. And even though I died and respawned in the meantime, it helped me charge up another Hypercharge, so Jessie was ready for overtime. Hypercharge technology really does win. No matter what build you use, Hypercharge Scrappy does a significant amount of damage compared to normal Scrappy. So of course, both gadgets and Starpowers pair well with Jessie's Hypercharge. But my favorite build increases her Hypercharge charge up rate significantly. As you can see, Sparkplug definitely takes a backseat to Recoil Spring when it comes to Hypercharge Scrappy recharging Jessie's Hypercharge. Add her Shocky Star Power to the mix and you'll increase that charge up rate even more when 2 or more enemies are within range. Much like with other brawlers' hypercharges, Jessie's hypercharge can either make or break a game, but in my highly prejudiced opinion, you have a much higher chance of being the game changer with Jessie. That's because with my build, you'll be able to cycle hypercharges all game, and the more hypercharges a game, the better. But even if you go with other builds, you'll still be able to make plenty of game-changing plays with her because her hypercharged little friend is a tanky boy and will be there for you when you need a good teammate by your side. Jessie's basic attack bounces off enemies and hits up to 2 other enemies in range, which means you can wear down the health of the entire enemy team if they're grouped together. This is why, especially in the early game, it's incredibly important that you aim every shot and look for choke points where enemies are forced to group up to help you get the most out of your basic attack. As I said before, not only does her basic wear down enemies, it also reveals their location in the grass, making her a very good scout on many grassy maps. To be a good scout, it's important to pay attention to where enemies are likely to gather together, like in patches of grass and behind walls, and aim every shot in that location. While Jessie has a pretty large auto-aim sweet spot, or the range where her auto-aim shots are very likely to hit targets, her orbs do have a bit of a delay, so it's best to try to aim almost every shot. Not only that, try and practice predictive aiming. Don't aim at the enemy based on where they are at that moment, but rather where they are likely to go next. If you only manage to hit 1 enemy at a time, it takes 6 shots to charge up Jessie's first super. The higher up in trophies you get, the less likely enemies will group up, which is why it's important to treat every shot like it's worth 1 million bucks. Until Jessie has her first turret, she's extremely vulnerable. Once you charge up your first turret, place it immediately on the map. It's important to get Scrappy in a good place early on in the game so that even if you die, Scrappy can help your teammates complete the objective. On this trash heap of a map maker map, I hate these so much. I got stuck, so I threw Scrappy onto the launch pad to help out my teammates in my place. It's not as good as having Jessie there to help, but Scrappy did help my teammates out of a few close calls and we won the game. There are 2 types of turret placement, 1 defensive and 2 aggro. When you place your first turret, it's best to put it in a more defensive location. Look for walls and grass where Scrappy can be a bit incognito, but still close enough to the action that will help you charge up your Hypercharge super. Once you have that Hypercharge super, you can push forward and place Hypercharge Scrappy somewhere that is key for the enemies to achieve the objective. It's harder for them to destroy tanky Hypercharge Scrappy, so you can be a bit riskier with this placement. But even so, it's best to find a wall in a key spot to ensure it doesn't get destroyed until you can charge up another Hypercharge. On the other hand, if you're using Sparkplug, you'll probably be using aggro turret placement almost exclusively. And what I mean by that is you throw the turret in your enemy's faces and you hit your gadget. This is why Sparkplug pairs well with Energize, because you can heal up your turret if it survives the aggro attack. You can, of course, benefit from an aggro turret with recoil spring as well. If you have bad randoms and your team is falling behind, a good aggro turret can change the tides of a game, secure a double kill or team wipe, and force the enemies to waste their ammo on the turret, making it easier for you to wrestle control out of their hands and, in doing so, carry your random teammates. If you manage to do that, however, make sure to place your next turret in a more defensive location so you can maintain that control. Jessie is first and foremost a controller, so you need to think strategically when it comes to her turret placement. It's easy to figure out a good spot to put her turret if you think about where you would like your teammates to be in order to protect you or to achieve the objective. Most likely, that is the area you want to control, which means that is the best place for Scrappy. When it comes to climbing the ladder or drafting in ranked, it's always very important to keep certain things in mind. While climbing the ladder, it's hard to predict who you're going to be matched against. On certain maps, you might get matched against a team you completely counter one game, and then in the next you will be countered. So working on your turret placement is key if you want to start gaining trophies. Teaming up with good teammates who can counter brawlers who counter you is also ideal, but if you're anything like me, you play with randoms way too much than is advisable for your trophy count and mental health. But that doesn't mean Jessie can't compete in high trophies, just you need to learn who she counters and who counters her so you can pick good matchups and be prepared if you're unlucky enough to be targeted by a brawler who counters her. When it comes to ranked, however, drafting is all about picking a good matchup and avoiding picking a brawler into a counter. So let's get into it so you can draft her with ease. She counters tanks, assassins, anyone who relies on pets, and anyone who relies on a turret. You might be thinking, what? Didn't you say earlier that tanks and assassins bully Jessie? Yes, in the early game before she gets her turret, they can, but once she has her turret in a good spot, the tables are turned, my friend, and they will struggle the rest of the game. In fact, my favorite brawler to counter with Jessie is Fang. It's ironic because if Fang is on Jessie's team, she's actually his best friend, wearing down the health of the enemy so Fang can super in and pop off. But most Fang players, even really experienced players, mostly auto-aim his supers. His super is usually more accurate if you do auto-aim, so it's no shade on them, but it's ill-advised playing against a Jessie. Once she puts down her turret, he will more often than not end up supering on top of her turret. Either she'll slow him down so she and her teammates can take him out easily, or she'll activate recoil spring and melt his HP. But either way, once she has that turret in place in a strategic spot, he is going to suffer. It's not just Fang though, tanks and assassins are hard countered by Jessie when Scrappy joins her on the map. The funny thing is, they do this to themselves by rushing to get an easy kill at the beginning of the game. More often than not, if Jessie goes down because an assassin or tank targeted her, she'll go down hitting 3 or 4 easy auto-aim shots, so she'll likely respond with a turret to use or with her super almost completely charged up. Essentially, they contribute to their own undoing. It's karma at its best. Especially when you find yourself in high trophies, hitting your shots gets harder and harder, so the aggression gives Jessie easy auto-aim shots to charge up her super. Sure, she'll lose the battle, but she'll win the war. She also counters anyone who relies on pets to get takedowns, like Charlie, Tara, Eve, Mr. P, even the evil twins Larry and Lori, as long as you're careful not to get hit by their basic attack. She's so squishy. But to most single shot brawlers with pets are too overwhelming to handle. Right now Charlie is an absolute menace in passive modes. I love her, but she is. Because she can use the +1 gadget, so she can have 4 sets of spiders, and with her hypercharge she can also spawn more spiders, even if she misses her super. but Jessie can delete those spiders with one shot, preventing her from pushing up the map and keeping Jessie's single shot teammates safe. This is what I mean by Jessie can actually really benefit her teammates in passive modes. Those pets are also easy auto-aim targets for Jessie, and more often than not, your teammates will be single shot sharpshooters like Piper when you go into passive modes like Knockout or Wipeout. Jessie may get outrange, but if you play it smart, you can provide a lot of value for your team and allow your sharpshooting teammates to really pop off. She also counters anyone who relies on a turret, like her mom, Pam. It's so weird that she counters her mom. And 8-Bit, both of which have turret supers and are tanks, so they feed her supers and struggle to withstand her high damage output. But also, anyone with a gadget turret like Spike, Ruffs, Janet, Leon, both of his gadgets are useless against her, etc., are easily countered by Jessie's basic attack and turret if you use her Shocky star power. The fact that a turret is stationary means that it's an easy auto-aim shot that will likely bounce onto them, punishing them for standing near it and benefiting from it. Now, of course, just like every other brawler in the game, Jessie does have her counters. Since Jessie gets most of her power from her turret, anyone who can destroy her turret without a scratch, counter her. Namely, throwers and sharpshooters, although there are some others. Throwers can hide behind walls and destroy her turret before Jessie can benefit from it, and sharpshooters, many of which inflict really high damage, outrange Scrappy, and can destroy in a couple shots. Both throwers and sharpshooters also outrange Jessie because throwers hide behind walls, making it very hard for her to get to them, and sharpshooters with good aim can just stay out of her range. This is why learning how to place defensive turrets is crucial for Jessie. If you throw a turret in your enemy's faces, the sharpshooters and throwers on the enemy team will just destroy it to protect their teammates. But if you place it in a more defensive place, they might just ignore it for a while. That means you can still use her turret to counter the tanks and assassins on their team. If they still manage to destroy it or break your wall so you can't do that anymore, just hold on to your turret and save it for protection if you get targeted or for the best, most opportune moment where an aggro turret can result in a double kill or a team wipe. It's easier for Jessie to get to sharpshooters than throwers though, so stay away from throwers in general. Usually if you don't feed them, they can't complete the objective anyway. But when it comes to sharpshooters, use the landscape of the map to close the distance between you and the sharpshooters. Juke as well as you can, but also use the grass and the walls to heal and close the gap until you get close enough to take them out.
Jess will fix it. Technology wins.
So there you have it. That's everything you need to know to be a good Jessie player. If you like this video and want me to make a guide for a specific brawler, make sure to leave me a comment. But for now, play later guys. Mwah!